like whether she can groom herself or not, like this kind of questions. So on that basis we can find out social age. So an individual age is not the ultimate thing to understand his actual age, so you will have to consider from all perspective in order to know the age. So that little bit concept I have given. And then the period of development, so we will study separately in different chapter. Another issues in lifespan development perspective, we have mentioned some of the point. Then some of the issues means there are questions, certain questions are there, whether nature is as important as nurture. That means whether heredity is responsible for your development or environment is responsible, which one is important. This is one issue. But the research findings shows that both are important. Basically, sometimes nature is playing dominant role, sometimes environment, but you cannot say that this is solely the factor which is responsible for development. So this is one, nature versus nurture controversy is one thing. Second is continuity versus discontinuity. Is human development best characterized as a slow gradual process, or is best viewed as one of more abrupt changes? This is also one question, whether it is continuous or discontinuous. Next is the active versus passive. Active versus passive means how much do you play a role in your own developmental path? Are you at the whim of your genetic inheritance or the environment that surround you? So some theories see human as playing a much more active role in their own development. Piaget, for instance, believes that children actively explore their own world and construct new ways of thinking to explain the things they experience. So these are the controversy. Another one is stability versus change. How similar are you to how you were as a child? Were you always an outgoing or reserved as you are now? Some theorists argue that the personality trait of adult are rooted in the behavioral, emotional tendencies of the infant and young child. And others disagree and believe that these initial tendencies are modified by social and cultural forces over time. So these are the controversy, which one should accept. So that is a controversy we will have to discuss. So these are the issues basically. And there are so many psychologists. I think if you are interested, you just go through. I don't know whether it is in your syllabus. I don't think. Historical background, always you should have little bit of idea when you are studying a new field. So that you will also go through if it is possible. Achha, there are certain principles of development. There are certain principles of development means development. In order to understand development, we should know the difference between development and growth. Do you know what is development and what is growth?
Yes, ma'am. I can try.
What is development and what is growth?
Yes. Ma'am, development is a process that continues throughout life, and growth continues after a certain period of time. Growth usually we can measure, development we cannot measure. And development includes physical, motor, social, cognitive, emotional, and growth basically are of two types, quantitative and qualitative,
Yes.
even development also. And quantitative that we can understand and check and see, like the height and weight. And development, the qualitative one we cannot see, but we understand. Like when a child learns words, like initially the child learns words like one word, two words, three words with a small sentence without verb. So as the child grows up, it is easier for the child to learn more, adapt more words, and that we can only see and understand, but we cannot count usually. We cannot measure.
So this is the first principle of development. You will have to know what is growth and what is development. So both occurs in case of an individual's whole development. The second facts or the principle is early foundations are critical. That is very important. Early foundations are critical means
when a child is very young, we can mold. We always say that we can mold a child when the child is very young. So it is capable of absorbing things much more than like when we slowly grow up, our take the things that we take in, that thing reduces. So that is why the growing time, the growing time period, that is very critical for teaching, because the child is continuously observing and imbibing the things around him or her. So that is why, ma'am, it is critical.
Okay, can you give anybody's reference or personality theory who has emphasized only the childhood? I mean, the only early years is responsible for the whole personality development. Can you say somebody's name? Do you have any
Personality
idea?
theory, ma'am.
Ma'am, Sigmund
Huh?
Freud.
Huh?
Ma'am, is it Sigmund Freud?
Personality theory.
Yeah, Sigmund Freud.
Freud.
Freud,
Freud.
yeah.
Yeah,
Freud, ma'am.
so Freud. Huh. So what is Freud's basically conception? What he said about that early development is more critical than later development.
Hmm.
How he has explained?
Through some stages, ma'am. He has
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about some oral fixation
Like
and all those
oral
stages.
stage.
Latency
Ma'am,
Psychosexual
period
it's
and
called
development,
the
see.
oral.
psychosexual
psychosexual
stages of
development.
Ma'am,
And
Erickson theory.
yes,
Right,
in the
right.
medical theory also we have done the stages.
Ma'am, there is also some stages through which we can understand the
oral
development of
stage,
development
latency
process.
Okay,
stage.
okay. Don't have to now. We will not discuss in details about Freudian psychosexual development. It's a huge part. We will get opportunity to discuss Freud in personality MAPC 3, I think. So we can touch little bit on under the heading early development is more critical than later development, because according to Freud, our personality develops within 7 years of age. So can you imagine? But for most of the parents and people we are thinking that 7 years is too early. The child cannot understand anything. So we can do whatever we want to do, isn't it? But most of the time we see that in my chamber, I have noticed that at the age of 12, 13, parents become aware that my child is not developing normally. But they considered up to 12, 13, 14, 15 years as child. So they treated them as a very small child, and they expect at the age of 15 that individual will have a total personality to deal with the reality. So Freud has explained that our personality develops within 7 years, and he has explained, all of you have said correctly, that our personality develops from birth to 7 years, that through psychosexual stages through which our personality develops.
Hello.
So that way he has emphasized early development is very important, and the manifestation we are observing after that. So that way we should consider early development, early stages. And then the third principle is role of maturation and learning. So in order to understand development, you should consider maturation and learning both, because without maturation or without learning, development cannot occur. So both are needed. So I think you know what is learning and what is maturation. Can you tell me? What is maturation? Just give an example. And what is learning? Maturation is the unfolding of the individual's inherent traits, like sitting, crippling, walking. Just now I said that when you are telling that the baby started talking or walking. So these are this is maturation at particular age. Maybe a baby, whenever an individual starts walking at the age of 1 year. So that is maturation. And how learning will help her? Learning basically comes from exercise that is specific to the individual. How learning help us to
Learning helps us in behavioral
yeah,
changes.
learning. Yeah, any kind of learning like writing, drawing, swimming, everything. Maybe you have potential, but without learning, it will not come out. So in case of development, we should consider maturation along with if a individual is like start working at the age of one, and you are giving learning little bit before that, you will see little little before time she will start working. So learning will help us to come out the genetic potential. So both are needed to in case of development. And the fourth one is development follows a definite and predictable pattern. So definite and predictable pattern means there are orderly pattern of physical, motor, speech, and intellectual development. For example, the pattern of physical and motor development, like laws of development of direction, if you will consider, you will see there is certain consistency of development. It's not that only one development occurs very fast, another one is very slow, not like that. There is a consistency, there is a predictable order. You can predict from that development. If a child is short, you can predict that she will be short, her height will be short. So from the development, we can predict that what kind of development is occurring. So next is the developmental, each phase has certain hazards. So development is not very smooth for all the stages. There are so many hazards. So hazards means, can you give an example? For example, if I consider...
Ma'am, hazard comes from not only in after birth, hazard also come before birth, during the pregnancy.
Hazards
Yeah,
come, ma'am, hazards come from prenatal period up to the old age period in different sorts of
right,
hazards.
Ma'am,
right.
it can be
So
some
can,
trauma, natural disaster, some trauma that
Any
And the hazards,
accident.
the cause of the
Madam,
hazards should be genetic and environmental.
teratogen is the one of the factors in the
In case of
prenatal
prenatal
development.
period, teratogens are one of the factors. Yes, right.
Ma'am, socio-cultural forces are also important.
yes. So that
Even
means
emotional factors, ma'am, are also important nowadays. Emotional factors.
Any kind of
Yeah.
addiction.
Okay, so factors we will discuss later on. So in case of development, they are telling one thing, that each phase of development has hazards. Like prenatal, just now one has mentioned that prenatal has certain hazards. It's not so smooth, but the hazards will not occur for everybody. But there are chances of hazards. Like in case of periods of ovum, first conception up to 2 weeks, what are the hazards? There are certain hazards. After that, periods of fetus, there are also hazards. So during pregnancy, we are telling most of the time, be very careful. These things can happen. So there are certain hazards. We are getting alert for that reason. In case of social development of a child, there are certain hazards. Speech development, there are certain hazards. Hazards mean speech. Normal speech, it is occurring, but sometimes exception is there, like disorder, speech disorder, bilingualism, so many difficulties in pronunciation, sentence constructions. So these are all hazards. But that is not same for all individual, and that is not it is not that that hazards will happen for all individual. But hazards are there. It's not so smooth. Then next, another principle they have mentioned, that there are certain expectation for each of the stages. So we are expecting each and every developmental changes. That if the child enter into adolescence, we are expecting from puberty to adolescence what will happen. So for each developmental stages, we have certain expectation that these physical, emotional, cognitive, moral, all the domain of development, there will be certain expectation, because there will be certain changes. And another principle they have explained, they have mentioned that there are 3 A's of happiness. 3 A's of happiness means that throughout the developmental period, happiness also differed. Some stages are very, sometimes some stages are very stressful. Some stages are very smooth. So that way they have mentioned principle as 3 A's of happiness. Can you tell me what are the 3 A's of happiness? A. what is needed to be a child happy? What are the factors, do you think?
Appreciation, ma'am.
Happy, you have need for appreciation or what?
More for motivation, up to appreciate whatever the child does.
So appreciation, always you want appreciation all the time. And
Uh,
if people
no,
will
not
appreciate, you
always.
will be happy. Yeah, no, it
Ma'am,
is
Is
very
it
common.
attention,
acceptance,
awareness.
acknowledgement, and appreciation? Is this the three?
What acceptance?
Acknowledgement, acceptance, and appreciation?
Attention can be.
Yeah.
Children need
Okay.
attention.
Ma'am, awareness.
All starting with A, you just tell from psychology. What do you think? One is acceptance.
Okay.
Okay. If you are accepted, then you said motivation. That means achievement.
Achievement, yes, sir.
Another one is very important, affection. So people are striving for affection, isn't it? The
Yes,
root cause
ma'am.
is need for affection. So if you are deprived at the very childhood, that affectional need will continue forever. So need for affection. So if you will get affection, then you will want acceptance. People will accept you, and then you will achieve in your life. So these three A's are very important in order to be happy. So what do you think? Which age is most happy? I mean, age now. It's better to say which period. Any period is happy or
Infancy period or early childhood period?
Ma'am, early childhood.
early childhood? Acha.
Yeah, early childhood. That time they didn't care about what is going on. They are happy with themselves only, and everyone is caring them. So these things, that is the most happiest period, I think.
Okay. And unhappy period?
Ma'am, I
And
think adulthood
adolescence
period.
period,
Adolescence.
the puberty period, where is the some hazards going on, and the teenagers are going through the adulthood period becoming on that time.
Hmm. Correct. Acha. So then we have covered up the introductory part of lifespan development. That is one thing we have mentioned. The first is what is developmental psychology, then some principles of development, and then issues of lifespan development, perspective of lifespan development, conception of age, and the stages, all the stages, and some controversies. So after that, we will discuss a little bit about the methods. Methods is very important thing through which we are getting basically data to understand the development occurs in the child. We can study or we can observe or whatever. So we should have a proper research methods. So in case of methods, in order to study development of a child, so research design we can classify into three. One is descriptive research, another one is correlational research, and the last one is experimental research. I think all of you have idea about research methodology a little bit. So I'm just explaining in short. Descriptive method, from descriptive, I think whoever has an idea of statistics, you have idea of descriptive statistics, where we are describing the results. So in case of research design, descriptive research design, our goal is to create a snapshot of current state of affairs. So it provides relatively complete picture of what is occurring at a given time, allows the development of questions for further study. A disadvantage, it does not assess relationship among variables. So this is descriptive research, just we are describing. And then correlational research, correlational means we are just assess the relationship between two or more variable. I mean, variables, do you have any idea of variables?
The things which change continuously. I mean, the changeable.
Okay. Okay. So variables means, I mean, like if I want to study the effects of now if I want to study the
Ma'am,
anxiety level of,
variables means variables we can identify as a factor also.
yeah, that is
It may
factor
be
also.
dependent or may be independent, which affect the development directly or indirectly.
Okay. So for example, like if I want to study anxiety adjustment of college student, so here the variables are anxiety, personality. So that variables, we can find out the correlation between these two variables also. So we are always trying to find out effect of some variables on that particular individual or group. So in case of descriptive research, there is no chance of introducing any variable. In correlational research, we are introducing variables and we can see the relationship between the variables. So allows testing of expected relationship between and among variables and making of prediction. Can assess this relationship in every life events. But the disadvantage is that it cannot be used to draw inference about the causal relationship between and among the variables. And the last one is the experimental research design, which assess the causal impact of one or more experimental manipulation on a dependent variable. So I think whenever you will do a practical, you will understand that just now I said, for example, if I will say the effect of something on like memory. So effect of something on memory, like effect of methods of learning on memory. So here we cannot change memory. We can manipulate methods of learning. So which we are manipulating is called independent variable. And we are seeing the effect of independent variable on memory, that is dependent variable, which we cannot change. So in experimental research design, we can assess the causal impact of one or more experimental manipulation on a dependent variable. So we can manipulate and we can see the effect of that variable on dependent variable. So advantage is that it allows drawing of conclusion about the causal relationship among variables. But the disadvantage is that cannot experimentally manipulate many important variables, and it is also expensive and time consuming because we cannot manipulate all variables. That is also difficulties and time consuming and expensive also. So these three we can divide as a research design. There is another time spent research design that also we can mention in developmental psychology. Mostly we are using. Can you tell anyone? Time spent research design. In case of developmental psychology, specifically we are using longitudinal,
Ma'am,
cross-sectional,
sequential method
Cross-sectional, time
but
lag,
and time lag method.
enough, I got the answer. Longitudinal, cross-sectional, sequential. Longitudinal examine changes within individual over time, provides a developmental analysis. So here we examine changes within individual over a period of time. Cross-section examine changes between participants of different age at the same point in time, provide information on age-related changes. And sequential examine changes within individuals over time. Examine changes between participants of different age at the same point in time, can be used to examine cohort effects also. So the disadvantage of longitudinal is what? Expensive, time taking, long time taking. Participants, there can be a loss of participants also. It's a long investigation, possibility of practice effects. Cross-sectional, what will be the disadvantage? Cannot examine changes over time because they are examining changes between participants of different age at the same point in time. So continuous, it's not occurring. And the sequential changes, what will be the disadvantage? That is expensive and the practice effects. So these are the idea of the methods of developmental psychology. Okay, so if we will start with the stages of development. Then first is the prenatal stages. I think the prenatal stages, all of you have an idea of prenatal stages. Can you tell me what is prenatal development?
Ma'am, it is the stage when it is developing from mother's womb.
Till conception
Up to
Conception,
birth. Conception to
conception to
birth.
birth. Conception to birth.
right.
And the complete procedure of
Achha,
embryogenesis.
Uh,
Embryogenesis, in short terminology, if we say that the prenatal development.
Ma'am, it refers to the process in which a baby develops from like a single cell after conception to a embryo and later a fetus.
basically, prenatal is defined as conception to birth. This is a period. Basically, I'm asking about the span of the time. I mean, the period.
9 months.
So that way,
Means 280 days, ma'am. It's 280 days.
Approximately 9 months.
right.
8 weeks maybe.
9 months.
I got the answer. Acha, can you tell me what are the different? Acha, what are the different periods of prenatal development?
Fetal stage, embryonic and
Germinal stage, embryonic stage, fetal stage.
Ma'am, there are
Okay,
three
so first
stages.
is
There are three
Huh.
stages. First one is zygote, period of zygote. That is from fertilization to the up to the second week. I think second week, end of the second week. And the second will be the period of embryo. And the third one is period of fetus.
Fetal stage. Yeah.
Embryo is 3 to 8 weeks.
8 weeks, and last fetus from up to the birth, month to birth.
9 weeks to the birth.
9 weeks. 9 weeks.
9 weeks to the birth, yeah.
Acha, so can you tell me what are the characteristics development occurs during this stage?
Ma'am, in the zygote period, one cell has been divided, that is mitosis and meiosis. These stages are occurring in this period. So one cell has been developed in more than 2 cells. The first cell in which the male genes are joined with the female genes, that is the zygote. And zygote, that is the like an unfertilized egg. And after that is divided into the cells again in this stage.
Okay, so what can be the hazards during these 2 weeks?
Now, actually, it depends upon the mother's health issues. If it may affect from mother's medicines, different types of medications
No,
of the mother.
that can happen in case of other period also, but specifically for this period of ovum, what can be the hazards?
Implantation may not occur.
Sir, ma'am, this is
Right,
the
right.
stage for the developing the organs.
No, I think the hormonal important.
This is the
play.
second stage, right? Okay.
I think the implantation, there will be a problem of implantation. If the implantation is not successful, because it is not always, implantation is not always foolproof, not always successful. So implantation, there can be a problem, and that may cause a problem actually.
Okay, right. Implantation, you said correctly, but you just tell me that implantation, what will happen then? How when it can be hazardous?
Ma'am, actually there can be various changes as the uterus and the hormonal changes that was said.
Estrogen, progesterone level is very important in that phase.
Yes, and actually, ma'am, from the fallopian tube to the uterus, the cell has to travel along the path before it implants into the uterus, and this is a huge long period to travel from this path, and there can be various hazards as the uterus can itself expel it, because several times it considers as a foreign material, and this can be a damage to the fetus also.
Okay, so implantation is one very important hazard. So implantation cannot occur if, as a result of glandular imbalance, uterine walls are not prepared in time to receive the zygote. So if the zygote becomes attached to a small fibroid, sometimes it can implanted to a different, just now you said. So what will happen then? Sometimes it implanted at the fallopian tube. So that is also risky for mother and the baby, for the mother mostly. So
Yes, ma'am.
this is very important hazards that occur during this first 2 weeks. So next is the period of embryo. So in case of embryo period, that is up to 3 months, I think. So what will be the hazards? Mostly we have seen now, we are telling that up to 3 months you should be very cautious. Why? What can happen?
Miscarriage can happen.
Yeah, miscarriage can happen. So
Ma'am,
falls, emotion. Tell
Ma'am,
me.
the surge of estrogen and progesterone at this time is high, and if due
Hmm.
to any emotional or any turbulence, if these
Right.
falls, then the uterus, there can be a menstrual period, and the baby can miscarriage, because the uterus will go under the blood flowing period, and the shadings of the uterus walls will start, and this can be a damage
Hmm.
for the complete zygote.
Right.
Ma'am,
So
teratogens are
miscarriage.
also a very vital part they have to play in
I
this time.
think most of the genetic hazard takes place in the first trimester, within the first 3 months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So these are
also
the
there is
factors
a
when we will
hazard
discuss.
for the viral infection also.
These are the these are the factors which influence prenatal development. We will discuss later. But in that particular period, whatever you are telling is correct. But the main thing is that miscarriage occurs because of that he has explained just now. Another one is very important during this period is developmental irregularities. Most of the time we have seen that nowadays they are doing a ultrasonography at the 2 months or 3 months just to see everything is normal or not. Sometimes they are not getting a respiration, or development is not proper, sometimes brain, skull. So that is irregular development, and at that particular period, if doctor found that something is irregular, something had happened, then they take some action to abort the baby, because this will further, it will not develop, because during 3 months and 4 months these things must be developed, like certain things that develop during this period, like skull, and the body proper shape, and the brain is much more larger than the other part of the body, like whatever is the expectation of this month will not happen. So developmental irregularities is very common hazards during this period, especially embryonic brain. So if it will not develop, then it is expected that later on it will not develop. Maybe it will develop not to like a normal human being. So this is very important hazards occurs during periods of embryo. And the last periods is the period of fetus. So fetus means when which one is very important at this period? What is important and what can happen as a hazards?
Spontaneous abortion can occur, and another thing is that there can be chorioamniotis, in which we see that bacterial infection and inflammation of the fetal amnion and chorion membranes can occur. Apart from that, there can be premature labor, and also sometimes we have seen that various injuries can be caused during this period by needle puncture, or placental separation is also another important which can occur. These are some of the
right. Okay, then period of fetus hazards he has mentioned. Miscarriage is also the same thing can happen over here. Prematurity, complications of delivery, developmental irregularities. So these are the hazards. So hazards, apart from that, you should know the development occurs during this 3 period. In case of periods of ovum, what are the major development that occurs during this period? First of all, the size of the zygote, that of a pinhead, remain unchanged because it has no outside source of nourishment. Then as a zygote passes down the fallopian tube to uterus, it divides many times and separates into an outer and inner layer. The outer layer later develop into placenta and umbilical cord and the amniotic sac, and the inner layer develops into a new human being. So about 10 days after fertilization, the zygote becomes implanted in the uterine wall. So this happens in case of like period of zygote, within second weeks. Next is the period of embryo. That is the end of second weeks to end of second lunar month. So what happened during this period? The embryo develops into a miniature human being. Major development occurs in the head region first and in the extremities last. So all the essential features of the body, both external and internal, are established. The embryo begins to turn in the uterus and there is spontaneous movement of the limb. The placenta, the umbilical cord, and the amniotic sac develop. So these protect and nourish the embryo. At the end of the second prenatal month, the embryo weight on average 1.5 ounces and measures and length, something they have mentioned. So this is embryo. So embryo, this is also very important because at that time that brain and all the essential things started to establish. And then periods of fetus, that is the maximum part after second lunar month up to birth. So here changes occur in the actual and relative size of the parts already formed, and end of the third lunar month, internal organ as well as enough they develop to begin to function. Heartbeat can be detected. Then end of fifth month, what happened? Internal organs have assumed positions nearly like the one they will have in the adult body. Then nerve cells present from the third week. So these occur one by one. And lastly, they take their positions for delivery. So end of seventh lunar month, the fetus is well enough developed to survive. And end of eighth lunar month, the fetal body is completely formed. So this is what the development, basically you should know under each of the stages. Stages is very important, 3 stages. So under each stages, you will have to write the main development occurs during this period along with hazards of each phase. So I will refer along this, IGNOU, you have that book. Along with, you should refer developmental books on developmental psychology by Harlock, child development by Harlock, and then Bark, another books on developmental psychology. Santrock is another book. So many lifespan development books are there. So you can refer, of course you should refer, and accordingly you will prepare answer. So today I have touched the introductory part and the prenatal. Little bit I can also, we have 10 minutes more. So we can discuss about the factors of prenatal development. So factors, so already you have started mentioning while telling the hazards. So what are the factors? If I divide factors into 2 broad heading, that is, one is environmental, another one is genetic factor. So genetic factor, all of you know, the gene, how it plays important role in case of development. So sex determination, phenotype, genotype, everything from that you can explain that how that gene plays an important role. But in case of prenatal development, what is the environment? It is not the outside environment, it is the internal environment, that is mother's home. So what will be the internal environmental factors that influence prenatal development? Can you tell? I think all of you know. Tell me.
One is, ma'am, RH incompatibility, means the RH factor of the blood.
Very important.
Because if the RH factor of the baby fetus is negative and the RH factor of the mother is positive, then it can lead to erythroblastophilitis. That can be a danger for blue baby syndrome and other syndromes.
Ma'am, any disease which the mother may
medications.
Right. Disease, RH factor, or anything?
Alcoholism, other mother takes so much
addiction
alcohol.
Of mother.
Yeah.
Ma'am, drug addiction and smoking.
Madam,
These will be the external factors, no? Drug addiction or alcoholism, environmental factor.
No, mother is taking drug. Actually, whatever mother is doing, that is affecting that child. So mother,
this will be the internal factor.
Yeah.
Age.
Maternal
nutrition.
Obesity.
Nutrition is very important.
Mother stress. Exposure to radiation.
Stress
in mother.
Yeah.
Right.
Madam, recessive gene, like first cousin, in the same family marriage.
Explain what you were telling. I couldn't hear.
Ma'am, emotional stability, that means stress and depression, these things.
Radiation is very
abortion also. Abortion also.
Illiterity.
If mother
nutrition of the mother
kind of radiation, then it will affect the child.
Right. I think all of you said all correct, all the factors. You have covered all the factors of environmental factors. So, from prenatal, we have learned that what is prenatal development, what are the stages along with hazards, and what are the factors influencing prenatal development. Okay, so this is for today's, I think I have covered only up to this. I don't know in your book how much this is. This is book, today was book 1 or what? I think book
Ma'am,
1.
according to
Yes,
the
ma'am. This
IGNOU
is book
study
1.
material, this
It's
is
book one.
unit 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Unit
Unit
1.
1 and
Block
2.
one.
We have
Block one
covered
unit.
unit 1 and 2.
Okay, okay. So that is book 1. Under book 1, 2 chapter I have covered, or the book
Yes,
1 I
ma'am.
have covered?
Yes, ma'am.
No,
No,
book
ma'am.
1 to all
In
be
one book.
possible.
Book 1, 2
Okay.
units have been covered.
Okay, you just go through the book, whatever are there. If you have any doubt, next class you just ask me and I'll continue the later portion. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Any query? If you want to ask any question, you can ask now also.
Ma'am, I want to ask a question actually, ma'am. Period of zygote you have already explained, and you asked that what is the hazard in this period. So can you explain it again, ma'am? Because I want to know that particular part which have to mention for the hazard when I want to write down the hazard of this period. The particular wording, actually, ma'am.
Okay.
For example, ma'am, period of embryo, that means developmental irregularities and miscarriage. Period of fetus, there are premature labor, placental kind of things. These are the wordings.
Okay.
So what is
Okay.
the...
Just write down. Okay. Just note down. In case of period of fetus, first is miscarriage.
Yes, ma'am. You continue, please.
Okay. Second is prematurity. Third is complications of delivery. And fourth is developmental irregularities.
And ma'am, what's about the zygote period?
Okay, zygote, that is ovum, the first one. That is, the first one is starvation. Under starvation, you will write the zygote will die of starvation if it has too little yolk to keep it alive until it can lodge itself in the uterine wall. Okay, so here the possibility of fallopian, the uterine, the implantation occurs in the fallopian tube. So this is the first one, starvation. Second is lack of uterine preparation. And third is implantation in the wrong place. You will get this from, I don't know, your book, it is there or
Ma'am,
not.
can you tell me once? Ma'am, can you
No,
tell
ma'am,
it
actually
once?
these are not in our book.
Okay, okay.
That's why,
okay,
ma'am,
if
I
you
am
will
asking
require, then
again.
I can give you, you can refer developmental psychology book by Harlock also. In net, I think if you will search ebook, you will get that book also. Acha, which one I should repeat?
Ma'am, whatever you were telling just now, please repeat once.
Okay. Acha, for period of zygote, number 1 is starvation. Number 2, lack of uterine preparation. Number 3, implantation in the wrong place. Can I say period of embryo?
No,
Yes, ma'am.
in ma'am,
Yes,
fetus
ma'am,
के नीचे last
we are
one text
writing
बोल
now.
दो.
Last is implantation in the wrong place.
Ma'am,
These are the
fetus,
period of zygote, right, ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, the embryo, the period of embryo.
Yeah, embryo is number 1, miscarriage. Number 2, developmental irregularities.
Ma'am, in our book at the last page, it is already mentioned that there is a book, Developmental Psychology from by Harlock, I think. Huh? So we will get it as a ebook, ma'am.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay,
it's there.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
If you want, I can send you also, but you just try by your own. If you will not get, then I will send.
Sure, ma'am.
Ma'am,
We
can
will
you
try
please
it.
repeat the first point of fetus? Ma'am, can you
Fetus
please
last
repeat the
point,
first point
developmental
of fetus?
irregularities.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
developmental
ma'am.
irregularity.
Ma'am, actually, I want to share you a thing that is, we are not sure that if there will be any other classes from IGNOU. So, if there will be any requirement regarding the study material or anything, we have to take it in details. So, how can we contact with you, ma'am, if required? Because we are not
Okay,
sure that
now
is there.
for no, don't worry, Masjid. You will get a class, and if you have any like books only or any questions, you can ask me in the class. And if you will require any book, if it is possible, I'll try to send some of your friend or somehow we will arrange.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, because we are very worried about it, because some of us from other background rather than the psychology. That's why,
Yeah, I can
ma'am.
understand. Right.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
I
ma'am. Thank you
think
so much.
nothing to worry. We'll get a class and we will explain. Okay.
Thank
Ma'am,
you, ma'am.
one thing more. Yesterday, we were all waiting for our MPC 001 class, but no one actually turned up.
That I can't say. You will have to ask from that Vikas Bhavan or somewhere else or the coordinator because these things I don't know. I cannot say anything.
Ma'am, firstly, the coordinator, he doesn't pick up the phone and it's like so
Yes, ma'am, that's the
confusing. We are
problem.
not sure also when the classes are going to take place. What is the like
Hey,
schedule?
all information regarding class and all that, though it's not my domain.
Okay,
Basically, I
we
don't know.
understand. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Okay.
try to find out from office or for coordinator, whatever.
Okay.
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 Okay. Okay. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Bye,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thank you so
Bye.
Thank
much.
you, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.